On the heels of Joe Biden's huge wins on Super Tuesday, political analysts predict Biden may have the Democratic nomination wrapped up by April 4th. That's when Louisiana voters are going to cast their ballots in the state's presidential primary. And Paul Murphy is reporting tonight on how Biden's seismic shift in popularity is playing here in Louisiana.
Former New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg is the latest Democratic hopeful to bow out of the presidential race. Wednesday, he closed his campaign headquarters in New Orleans. Campaign volunteer Anthony Jackson plans to follow Bloomberg's lead and throw his support to Joe Biden.
Joe Biden is a true Democrat and somebody that has been in the trenches, especially in the African-American community. So I definitely will support Joe Biden.
Other major candidates, including Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Beto O'Rourke, have also endorsed Biden. The former vice president won 10 states on Tuesday. New Orleans-based political pollster Ron Faucheux says he's never seen momentum shift this quickly in a presidential race.
It was extraordinary, it was historic, and it was something that really nobody could foresee a week before it happened.
Bernie Sanders took delegate-rich California. He plans to stay in the race for the long haul.
I tell you with absolute confidence, we are going to win the Democratic nomination.
But Faucheux predicts Biden could have the race wrapped up before the Louisiana primary on April 4th.
You've got some pretty big states that will vote on March 10th and March 17th. And if Biden keeps moving the way he has been, he should have the nomination locked up by March 17th.
Back at Bloomberg headquarters, Anthony Jackson called Biden the Democrats' best bet when it comes to regaining the White House.
I think at this point, he is a candidate that definitely could beat Donald Trump.
Super Tuesday breathed new life into a Biden campaign that seemed to be gasping. But with plenty of campaign left between now and Election Day, it remains to be seen if the momentum will carry him to victory in November. Paul Murphy, Eyewitness News.
Louisiana will send 60 delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Milwaukee. 54 of them are pledged to a candidate and will be elected in primaries and caucuses across the state. 6 of our delegates are so-called super delegates. They include Governor Edwards, Congressman Richmond, and 4 state party officials.